I developed chicken pox, I was taken home, quarantined, and so on. And whilst I was recovering, there was a newspaper ad from a local college that there was a new program which was launched called MCA, Masters in Computer Applications. So it was a new program, and my mother said, "You are living on your own. Why don't you apply for this college so that at least you can stay with the family?" So I applied and I got through. And then I said, instead of doing CA, let me do MCA. It sounds better. So I ended up joining MCA and completed it. After completing MCA, I took up my first job. I joined CMC Limited. Now CMC Limited at that time was India's leading IT company, which has now been acquired by TCS. So I did the railway reservation project for India, and it was such a great success that people used to come from overseas to see how an Indian company has automated something so complex. So that gave me a lot of confidence. In fact, it made me overconfident. So overconfident that I quit my job and decided to set up my first company. So after 2 years of job, I quit and set up my first software company in 1990. And in a couple of weeks, I realized it was a mistake because I had no idea how to sell. I was a programmer in my job, so all I knew was how to program, and I had zero idea about selling. So when I tried to ask for meetings from companies, nobody would even answer the calls or get me to the right person. So after about 2.5 months, I could not even get a single meeting anywhere. And then I thought, it is not going anywhere, maybe I should go back to job. But then there was that urge in me to give it one more shot, and then I changed my strategy, that instead of going for large companies, I started going for small businesses. So I tried to set up meetings with stockbrokers, with petrol pumps, so because everyone needed some kind of IT solution. So that strategy worked. So suddenly I had my first order, then second order, third order, and so on. So now I started earning twice my salary. So I thought this is a good sign. Now I am earning double the money. But how do you scale? Because there was no capital. So I could not employ people. So what I did was I went back to my friends or old colleagues at CMC, and I said, why don't you work for me part-time? So suddenly I had now availability of more engineers who were willing to work in the evenings or on the weekend. So my delivery capability expanded, and I could do a lot of orders at one time. So when that happened, it started growing to some degree, and one of the stockbrokers who was my client, I had to make a software package for him to plot the share prices. So I would sit in his office and learn from him his industry so that I could make the software. And this stockbroker became a good friend. So one day I was waiting for him to give me some business input, and he was busy. So I ended up buying 100 shares of Reliance, sitting in his office. And in few minutes, I mean maybe 10-15 minutes later, I sold them. After it increased by 5 rupees, I made 500 rupees. So I felt this is really cool, earning 500 rupees in 15 minutes. So maybe I should become a stockbroker. So when this broker got free, I went to him and I said that, how do you become a stockbroker? I don't want to run my software company, but I want to be a broker. He said, no, you should stick to your profession. But he was so kind that he said, okay, if you do want to set up, normally I take a deposit. Because if you want, I can make you my sub-broker, and then you can try to see if you want to become a broker eventually. So he said, normally I take a deposit, but for you I will waive it. Again, the door opened for me, and I set up my second company, which was about stockbroking. So in this company, those days the stock market used to open 2 hours. So I started buying, selling for my friends. But my friends were all very poor people, in the sense they were all in jobs and they could only earn, because they were all my age, and in the beginning of the career salaries are not great, so they were only able to buy 100 shares, 200 shares, and my brokerage income was very, very small. But I started buying and selling shares for myself as an experiment, And suddenly I started earning so much money that I started playing guess games with my wife. And I met my wife at CMC. In fact, we changed the name of the company from CMC, which was Computer Maintenance Corporation, to Couple Making Corporation, because lots of people were getting married there. So eventually, when I was trading for myself, I ended up earning thousands of rupees every day and was playing guess games with my wife. So one day I would ring her up and say, guess how much today? She would say 5,000 rupees. I would say, no, 10. Next time, 10 to 20 and so on. So in about 6 months, I earned 33 lakhs in year 1991. So this was a significant sum of money equivalent to a few crores today. And I thought, now I have arrived, I have made it big, I have money, so I can actually put all this money into my software business and expand the business. So I made this money in 6 months, but there was a big scandal on the stock market, Harshad Mehta scandal. And as luck would have it, I lost all that money in about 2 weeks. Because everyone was selling, I was saying people are overreacting, and I kept holding on to my stock. And eventually I had to sell them for almost nothing. And then not only I lost 33 lakhs, I lost about 40 odd lakhs. So I was 7 lakhs under. And then of course, what do? You go back to your mom and dad and say, please help me, bail me out. And that's what I did. I went back to my dad, and my dad was in a job. So he had to borrow money from his provident fund so that I could pay the stock market, the brokers and so on. And then of course I was also married. So my father-in-law also started coming to me to give me advice, go back to job. And eventually, under pressure from parents, I quit my business and found a job. And the way I found the job is also very funny, but I will still go into this level of detail because there are very important messages. I think if you listen to the story carefully, a pattern would emerge. So when I was looking for a job, I applied here and there, and one company which I applied for was Siemens. And Siemens, they had a written test. So when I went for the written test, I went with a friend of mine. I reached half an hour late. The test had already started. But of course, the HR lady who met me at the reception, she said, now you can't take the test. I said, look, we came in the rain, we were wet, our scooter broke down and so on and so forth. So please allow us. So she was also kind. So our persistence with her allowed us to actually take the test. And when we took the test, because we were late, they did not make us sit with rest of the candidates. So we sat in a special corner, me and my friend, and there were two papers, Unix and C, which was a technical paper, and one paper was numerical reasoning, verbal ability, etc. So I did not know anything in Unix and C. So I copied my completely because there was nobody looking. And when the result came, my friend failed and I passed. And then of course they called me group discussion, and in the group discussion there were 10 people sitting, and every time I tried to speak something, say something, I could not, because there was one South Indian girl who would speak up before me every time, each time. And as a consequence, in the entire of group discussion, I did not speak a word. So I thought that's the end of it. I now need to look for another, need to apply. But just when it finished, the group discussion opened and somebody walked. He had like a list of names. And then he said, Mr. Bajaj, will you please summarize the group discussion? So I got an opportunity to speak out of nowhere. And then they said, please wait outside. They chose one candidate out of the whole, me. So I now had an opportunity to get to the next stage, which was about the interview. Now this time I wanted to be sure that I don't reach late, so I reached like 2 hours early. So whilst I was waiting, there were a lot of other people going in, and every time somebody would go in, come out, I would stop. Please tell me what were they asking, as if I would learn everything in those few minutes. And when my turn came, and everyone said it's a very technical interview, and I was very weak technically because for 2 years I had been in business, not really programming that much. So when my turn came, there were like 4 or 5 people sitting, and they started asking questions. On my CV was written that I was running a stockbroking firm. So the one guy ended up asking, how do you find a stock to invest? was a big news item those days, all this scandal and so on. So my entire 45 minutes of interview was on stock markets, not a single question asked. And then I got the job. And then, of course, the story doesn't end here, because when I joined, they said, all of you need to learn German because eventually you will go to Germany. So we were all learning. One day I got a call that I have been chosen out of the 10 people who were selected to go to Germany first. So I packed up. So many people came to airport to see me off, because those days going abroad was a big thing. And when I reached Germany, I met my new boss. So this is now my day one at the job practically. And this new boss tells me that I'm sorry, Vish, the project for which you have come has been cancelled. So you have to fly back home. And by the way, I have also been sacked. So my boss was sacked and I had to go back. And I was thinking, I have come all the way now. If I go back, people in India would think this guy has done something, failed to deliver, and he's been sent back. So, but this German boss of mine, he said, why don't we meet at lunch? So I thought, okay, at least I can have one German lunch before I go back. And then when I met him at lunch, there was, he was very happy. He said that I have good news for you. I have managed to convince my bosses to give money for 6 months. So we can survive for 6 months, and with this money which I have got, I can only hire 2 people. So I've hired one German guy and I have hired you, because you are a cheap resource from India. So that was my qualification. So I ended up staying there. Now this is where the journey begins, because now I was part of a large company. Siemens has 4,70,000 employees worldwide, and we were a set of 3 people in such a large environment, because in the campus I was in, there were 90 buildings connected underground from one building to another through a golf cart, because it snows there. I was in Munich. So this gentleman and me and the other German, third guy, we had to survive for 6 months. Basically, we had to do something. So we were like 3 entrepreneurs in a large company environment. So it suited me very well, my personality. So we did not know what to do. So one day my boss came and he said, I've got our first order, something to do with performance management. So what do you know about performance management? So I said only what it means in English. So he said, go to the library, read up whatever you can, and then we will deliver this project. So I ended up going to the library. Siemens had a big library in the campus itself, and read up, and then we delivered the project. And when we delivered the project, it was applauded. Then we got second order, third order, and we suddenly, over about 10 to 12 months, we were known as performance management gurus. To the extent our department became the stamping authority for all the machines which were getting manufactured by Siemens, about their ratings, that this machine can compute so much and so on. So we became the stamping authority. My boss was identified as a potential CEO material, because he created such a great image, reputation, and a business from nothing. So he was identified as a potential CEO material. Siemens also has their own business school. So he was sent to the business school. And now I became bossless. But when he was leaving, he said, would you like to join my friend? He's running a telecom project. Now imagine how the journey is progressing. The company I run today, it will unfold how it got there. So telecom, for the first time, I said yes, I would be interested. So I joined this telecom team. Now this was a development group, a lot of technical guys developing a very complex telecom software for telecom operators. So I thought I will be able to enjoy a lot, because I would at least go back to software and learn something once again which I've forgotten. But it was my misunderstanding, because the reason they had taken me was because I could speak English. One of the components they were using in the software was bought from a company in US. And these German colleagues of mine could not speak English, so they hired me so that I could write emails to this supplier in the US. So for 1 year, the only thing I did was write emails. But it was on a specific product called SS7, which is signaling system number 7. And it was something so unique that there were not many people who understood SS7. So one day somebody came from UK office of Siemens to talk about SS7. So obviously because I was the English speaking guy, so they sent me for the meeting. And when I finished the meeting, I said goodbye, etc. Couple of days later, I got a call from UK that we are looking for a SS7 expert. So they made me an offer, would you like to move from Siemens Germany to Siemens UK? By that time I was bored of watching German TV, and I said, why not? Without realizing that what I was going to get into, because I was not an expert on SS7. I only had written maybe 500 emails, 1000 emails, but I felt still confident that I could pick it up. So I accepted the offer and moved to Siemens UK. Now it's a completely new environment. From a development house, now I'm part of a sales outfit, because this was a sales unit of telecom of Siemens UK, and there were 16 odd people. So 16 people, and the boss here was a Welshman. So England, Wales, Scotland. So this guy was from Wales, and he was like a complete maverick. He would not, normally Siemens is a very process oriented company, but he would run it as like a private enterprise. He would say that we want to become the #1 sales performing unit in the entire world. Now Siemens was operating in 120 countries. So he wanted to be #1, and he was operating in a complete maverick style where he would say that let's not even sell Siemens because our own products are expensive. So we will sell IBM and we will sell HP. So he was like a complete maverick that he would not even follow the processes because he wanted to be #1. He was like about selling whatever the customer wants. So the culture of the place was about go there, win it and deliver it. And it was quite interesting for me. I was just watching it from the side, being a SS7 consultant. So in about 2-3 months, they did not get any orders on SS7. So they said, your opportunity is not happening. Why don't you learn something new? So I started reading about telecom in my free spare time, and when I finished a few lessons on telecom, they started sending me to sales meetings with sales guys. They said, now your new role is that you are a pre-sales guy. So now my job was to go with sales people and do the technical presentation to the customer. So that I started doing, and then I became the favorite of the sales people only because I would prepare for the meeting before going to the meeting. So sales people used to fight with each other that who would take wish for a meeting today. And that was only one simple reason, that I would prepare in advance of the meeting. So, but the culture of the place was to go win anything. So one meeting we went to sell a billing package, because telecom guys need billing. It's a very important part of their business. So this customer we went to, they said that we don't want to buy a billing package right now because our business processes are in a mess. So business processes, because they are in a mess, we are going to do BPR first. Now they said BPR, my sales guy who was with me, he said we will give you BPR. So I'm nudging him that BPR is management consulting, business process re-engineering, we can't do as Siemens, we are a technology company, but our sales guy being our sales guy here to sell everything. So this customer said, or prospect said, that we did not know that Siemens also does management consulting. But our sales guy said, yeah, we do everything under the sun. And when we came out of the meeting, and we convinced the customer to give us an opportunity to present. So when we came out, we had 1 week to present. So we rang our boss, this Welsh boss. His name was Hugh. Hugh, these guys want BPR. They don't want to buy the billing package. So our meeting report. So he is saying that, okay, give it to them, like our sales guy. So I said, Hugh, this is business process engineering. He said, you went to the meeting, it is your problem. But this also shows how business managers who empower their people also get the best out of them, because certainly because we were empowered, we also had the responsibility to deliver. So I went to a bookstore and I bought some books on business process reengineering. So I made a presentation by reading books. So once when we got the opportunity to present, we presented and we got the order. And the reason we got the order to do BPR is, in the meeting, whatever case studies I had presented were actually from the books which I had bought. The customer thought that we actually as Siemens had done all those case studies. talking of jugaad, but this is even no jugaad here. This is happening. This is life unfolding. So we got the order, and then how do we deliver it? Because getting the order was the easier part, but how do you deliver it? So I went to our boss again that how do we deliver? He said, your problem. So I rang up our German headquarters and found some management consultants. So these two German consultants came, and I received them at Heathrow Airport. The customer was at Manchester, 3-hour drive. So I'm driving with two Germans in the car, and I'm talking to them. And talking to them, I realized that these guys were not so intelligent or maybe not competent, because the kind of interaction I was having was not satisfying. So but it was too late. The meeting was set, the customer was waiting. So we went to the customer meeting, the meeting happened, and after the meeting I called up my boss again that these guys who have come, they are no good. So my boss said, fire them. I said, I've never hired in my life. What do you mean fire them? And then he said that you need to do it. And then eventually I said goodbye to them, dropped them back at Heathrow, and then I had a problem how to deliver the project. So now this is where the business story is going to start. So whilst you're waiting for how did I turn back into a business guy, so I had this idea that there were two of my friends who were in IIM studying for their MBA, almost completed. So I rang them up that there is a management consulting assignment, would you like to work? And it's a short project for less than a month, so you can take a tourist visa and come. So these two friends of mine came on a tourist visa, and I had confidence in them because they were very bright. I had full confidence, and they were my friends anyway. So in the end, when they came, the problem was they were intelligent, but they could not understand the British accent, especially because we were in Manchester. So for example, budget, they will pronounce as budget, like bus is a bus. So it was like very difficult for my Indian friends. London accent is still easy, but North is a slightly more different from what we are used to. So I said, okay, don't worry, I will become the management consultant, and what we will do is in the evenings you can help me correct the processes with all your ideas and your training. So I started conducting the workshop, which basically meant all the stakeholders of the customer would be sitting, I would be asking the questions, we would be making notes, and then in the evening over beer we would be making the process. And then after about 3 weeks we completed the business process reengineering for this particular process, and when we presented to the customer, they clapped. They clapped to the degree that they said, we want you to now do the BPR for the whole company. So what was a 3-week project turned into a year-long project. By the time I was already enjoying it, so I thought I need to now change my career. I enjoy being a management consultant. So I changed into a management consultant, and eventually we ended up doing a lot of management consulting work, to the extent my boss, he said, Vish, would you like to set up this as a business unit? So he made me head of the management consulting practice in Siemens UK. So this was like a big shift from a programmer to a email writer to pre-sales to management consulting. So I kept doing that, and then my boss, once again, he got promoted and he was made head of telecom worldwide. So he went to the corporate office, and once again I had now a new boss. And this new boss was very different from my old boss, and I just could not work because he was too process driven and everything was wrong about him from my perspective, although he was a wonderful person. So in the end I quit, and when I quit I thought, now I'm going to start my own company once again. So this was after 7 years in Siemens. So I set up my consulting company called Telecom Consultants in the UK, and in about 3 months I decided to, I realized that I could not work, I could not find the orders, because when the orders would come, I would not have the right kind of skills. The right kind of skills would be there, no matching orders would come. So it was a big mismatch. So I started looking for a job once again. So I found a job this time but this time I was sure that I wouldn't want to work with a large company. I wanted to work with a startup. So I got an offer from PwC and a startup young guy, a young company called 0800 Freedom, which wanted to launch UK's first ISP, free ISP, internet service provider. So I got a job offer to become their CTO. So I thought this is interesting. It is a startup and I would enjoy it. And I took this job. My boss was a 26-year-old guy who had raised 6 million sterling from VCs. So 26-year-old Englishman with a dream that he will make internet free for everyone. So that was my boss, 26-year-old, just a dream that internet should be free. And I was his CTO. So my job was to provide all the technology, build all the infrastructure. So basically my job was not hard because all I had to do was select vendors who would provide all the technology and also do the architecture and everything. So I was enjoying that, and about 16 months later we were ready to launch. But to launch we wanted to go to press and media, basically paint the whole town red that this new service, free service has arrived, and we were out of money. By that time the 6 million sterling were spent in the 42 people in content partnerships, in the hardware and everything. So we did not have enough money to do the big advertising. So my CEO, this young guy, he said that why don't we raise money? So next round. So he started taking me to VCs. Now this was my first interaction of how to raise money. So I went to venture capitalists with my CEO, and he would present the idea and I would present the technology. This is our architecture and so on and so forth. But just before we could get the money, and we were about to get the money, there was an announcement, there was a press story which said that Alta Vista was going to offer completely free internet in the UK. Now Alta Vista is what Google is today, because Google did not exist those days. So it was Alta Vista was the search engine, and it was almost like Google saying that we will do something and then somebody is trying to raise money for that business. So the VCs, all the banks refused to give us money. So the company had to shut down. So before we could go live, this startup was shut down. And then I became jobless. So now I thought I don't want to go back to a job anymore. So I will